rise and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rita. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White? Here. Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Let the record show that Commissioner Orthwein is absent with notice. Also present today is Gregory Dunham, Town Manager, Edward Nazaro, Assistant Town Attorney, Police Chief Edward Allen, and myself.
Thank you very much. We've had an opportunity to review the minutes that were presented for January 10th meeting. Any corrections, additions, or comments? No. Now is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have one addition, and that is to discuss very briefly. I'm sorry.
Well,
Go ahead.
we'll discuss that too.
Maybe next time I'll pay it.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Ms. Taylor, any changes to the agenda?
Town Manager has one.
We're going to move the minutes to a different part.
Okay, I'm adding, and it will be very brief, just a slight amendment and change to the landscaping that we've been working with St. Andrews over there by the very beautiful concrete poles that they have. So there's a slight, and I actually have distributed to you, it's like Mr. Lyons has right in front of me. There's a cover letter from Mr. Grassi, who was here, and a new elevation of the new plan. Remember, we had, I think it was something like 12 Christmas palms. I'll just talk about it when we get to it.
Okay. And
That would be under the manager's comment.
manager's comments. Okay.
Yes.
All right, very good. Our next meeting is March 13th at 9 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. Let's move to the Little Club's request for on-site trailer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is, as you know, the County Commission is, it's their responsibility to approve all construction of site trailers. And so the Little Club is asking permission to have a trailer on their site for their renovations to the club. And I think there's a site plan that shows you where that would be located. It's in the yellow.
To be present during the period of construction.
Correct. And it's located just due north of the, where am I?
Or Carmore.
Just north of the cart barn.
Any comments, questions about it? A motion to approve the on-site trailer requested by the Little Club, the construction period?
I'm gonna stay.
Oh,
I'll
I got a board member.
move to approve the trailer to be put during construction at the Little Club.
Second,
I'll second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Very good. Communication from the public, we have Perry Glickstein here today.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Greg and Rita. Nice to see you here today. My name is Kerry Glickstein, and I'm here today on the recommendation of Commissioner Stanley in that we have submitted some information to the town regarding the development of the Gulfstream Golf Club's surplus land adjacent to Plaza Soleil. And I understand that these types of requests, which require replatting, rezoning, site plan approval, aren't the typical thing the town staff reviews and understand it may take some time to get the right people in place to do the review for the town, and, which is fine with us. We understand, these things are complex, so the purpose is really just to introduce myself to the folks I don't know, and that we look forward to working with you in a way that we think will be a complementary addition to Plaza Soleil. I think some of the people there that, friends of mine for many years that I've known, that we've spoken about, are excited to see it, see something. I think the area is in need of some energy, and we think this will be a complementary addition to it. And that's really it. I don't really have any substantive issues to discuss. That wasn't the purpose of it, just to say hello. And we'll put a name to the face when you start seeing the letters come in and the paperwork. I appreciate your time.
Very good, thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to speak? Christine?
Big speakers there.
Good morning, happy Valentine's Day. I just wanted to bring to your attention, and I know that Greg is very versed on it, and many of you may be. We just recently in Ocean Ridge did a resolution in opposition to a House bill that's been floating around. It's House Bill 519. And what it basically does is it takes a variance if it is given to a property owner and affords other property owners on a residential level to have the same variance. So it is very important, especially I think to small towns where we try to maintain our character. You guys are very good about not giving variances. ARPD does it very judiciously, but I just wanted to make you aware of it. And if you felt strongly about it, I would encourage you as a municipality to maybe consider a resolution in opposition also. And I have some information on it that I'll give to Rita, and she can pass it out if she feels it's important.
That's a House bill now, right?
It is a House bill right now.
And what's the status of it?
It is in its second round. Word on the street up in Tallahassee is it is gonna pass in some form or fashion. This is the third year. It's been brought up in a different iteration, so. It is just, it is our continual slow erosion of home rule, but this one could have some really, I think, deep tentacles, especially for smaller towns who really wanna maintain character through our ordinances, so.
Thank you, thanks for bringing us up to date.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Ganger?
I hadn't planned on doing this, and I didn't realize that Christine was going to talk, but I wanted you to understand, this is serious stuff. This has been going on ever since I started going up to Tallahassee a number of years ago. And this erosion is constant. Every year, there's a new rule that affects particularly smaller towns, and particularly towns like us, who really don't have that many rules. But this is a good example of you get what you pay for. And I strongly urge you to do whatever you can, to understand the rule, and it does change as it goes from committee to committee. You might find a few words change, but this is one where we've got to, as best we can, hold the line and let people know that the impact of a bill like this can be very serious to us. Doesn't sound serious now. Most people don't even know it's going to happen, but it is going to happen at some point in time, and we've got to just keep mending our fences.
If I understand the nuance of it, essentially takes the Bert Harris Act.
Right.
And if you grant a variance to a property owner for
Correct.
whatever legitimate reason, it then empowers any other neighbor
To
nearby.
ask for the same thing, and you could easily see on some issues, it could travel fairly fast. So the best thing to do is to try and get it written in such a way as it limits the ability of the state to tell us how to run our small town.
What's the timing in this?
Well, if it passes as it was written, I must admit, Christine is watching this a lot closer than I am, and her town has taken decisive action. But
this could happen, how many committees are they,
This is the second committee. it's
yeah,
on.
you have 3 committees, you have to go through 3 committees. And then eventually, the House and the Senate have to consolidate bills that are approved into a final bill. But remember, these bills are written by generally people upstate, where problems are very different from down here. And I mean, I'm sure the person who's writing it thinks it's a reasonable thing to do. It's, the implication it has on small towns like us is what we're worried about. So I think Mayor, I would say, as somebody, look at it fairly carefully, and if you can, craft a simple statement. It may or may not have any impact, but if it does, it's positive for us.
Okay. Troy, I think you can take a copy of this, haven't you?
Yeah, and Mr. Ganger is correct in that I believe the original intent behind the bill was to address the regulation of short-term rentals and the variance is granted to be able to use that property for that purpose. And of course, that isn't very clear from the language in the bill. It does have far-reaching implications and certainly strengthens Burt Harris and puts additional, it definitely infringes on our ability to regulate during Gulfstream. So we can put a resolution on.
Anybody
I've read about the subject, so I'm prepared
to entertain a resolution
Yes.
from our town?
From what I understand, the Florida League of Cities, it's their #1 priority in the 2020 legislative session. And the bill failed to pass in the 2019 legislative session. But I guess they'll do it again, but I don't know if Greg with the League of Cities, if we've heard anything. They talked about it extensively in the quality cities that,
Yeah, it's kind of at the top of the list in terms of the concern for the League of Cities also. I'm wondering if, do you know the timing in terms of when the vote would actually occur?
I'm sorry, I don't have that.
But the session isn't very long, so, and
No, I
it's been
understand.
going for quite some time, so it's imminent. I think that,
If you could provide us with some direction.
yeah, I think that Christine has enough information to be able to provide to you what you need. And these things, there's a little show in this, that you're not gonna have to get into the short strokes. It's just a general affirmation on the part of small towns to the League of Cities that we support their view. And having had the League of Cities on my side once for 3 years, they're very tenacious, but if we don't support them, it really weakens their position. So I think having all the towns affirming their position is about the best we can do. We'll never get into the short strokes when you have to go and shake hands with every senator and every representative and inform them of what's going on. It's a pretty difficult task. The League provides that service to us, and I think in this case we should support them in their effort.
When's the session over?
I'm sorry.
That it should,
It's
can we wait until the next
yeah,
meeting for a
this-
resolution,
yeah,
or should we?
No,
Yeah.
it's, I would say this afternoon, you ought to.
So I think the consensus here is to authorize such a resolution. If we could work with Christine perhaps to get language and contact people to draft one for mayor's signature. Does that
Yes.
seem agreeable? Good.
Yes.
We'll get that out next week.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Do we need a resolution?
We have a consensus. I think that's sufficient for today. I'll send those out.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm Jeff with Cypress and Comcast Cable, just to give an update on our status. I know we had said that we would be finished. I am down to 8 houses, that all the major construction is done, except the lengths of the fiber drops exceed the 500 foots that Comcast keeps in stock. So out of the 8, 6 of them, we have a special order in. The order was just placed the beginning of last week when I finally got access to everything on the ocean. Majority of them are on the ocean. You know, they're 700, 800 foot. So those 8, you know, total of 8, before I can say we're complete. Steve Rosa couldn't make it here today, but he did want me to also let you know that he's, on our next meeting on the 13th, he's gonna try to have the installation manager from Comcast, because once I have these 8 done, it'll go the installation department. So he's gonna try to have Teron Kane at the next meeting to explain the transition process of him getting into homes and switching them over to the new fiber drops. We mentioned at last meeting that we do have a road cut on Old School. I have a pavement contractor all ready to go. We submitted the estimate to Comcast. I'm just waiting for authorization, which I don't believe is a problem. It's just a lot of red tape. As far as the orders on the materials of the 1,000-foot drops, that's through Corning. I don't really have any insight on the timeline on that, but hopefully within sometime next week, I'll get that stock in.
Okay. Any questions? No, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right.
Getting there.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 13th.
Thanks, Jeff. And with respect to AT&T, AT&T is basically done in the whole core area, where they have their hardest area to address is County Road. And so they can start that's imminent to finish that. Then they would have Little Club, and I think they're about 50% done on A1A, but they're done. What they're doing now, though, that surprises me is simultaneous to this work is that they're beginning to take down the old service in the core area. So you might see them taking wires down.
Great, that's a good sign.
You've probably seen a couple of bucket trucks out there in the core the last couple of days. Well, that's what they're doing. So,
That's the undergrounding update.
yes.
I did not finish, I want to make sure there's no one else who wishes to
Oh,
speak. It's
sorry.
already comment. Good. Okay, we move past utility underground. Any questions? No? Water main update, status of the bid process.
Yes, okay. Yesterday, we had our pre-bid, it was a mandatory pre-bid meeting. Yesterday morning, there were, probably 13 contractors who showed up for that. Again, it was a mandatory meeting. The bids will be open March 16th. The bids are out there, the advertisement of the bids are out there. And so the bids will be open Monday, March 16th. Then the lowest bid will be vetted by Baxter and Whitman for their ability to complete the work, and recommendation will be made to the town commission at the April meeting for the contractor. Then the contract terms have been communicated as part of the bid packet, so the town should be able to enter into the contract and enter a notice to proceed shortly after the bid award at the April 9 commission meeting. Substantial completion shall be achieved within 180 days from the date of the notice to proceed. Final completion shall be achieved within 30 calendar days from the date of actual substantial completion for a total of 7 months. The contract does allow for liquidated damages in the amount of $500 per day for every calendar day the project is over schedule. So if the notice to proceed is issued in May, the project will be completed no later than November. Good. So that is the water main update. The CIP engineering services for minor drainage and road upgrades. The town has issued the notice to proceed with this work. Baxter Woodman anticipates the work will take 21 days for a field inventory, contingent on the occurrence of a sufficient rain event. I mean, that, it's important that there's a rain event that preceding their, their analysis. And then an additional 60 calendar days to put together what they call a technical memorandum or their recommendations for what we should do to address the issues. Rebecca Travis mentioned that other municipalities have contracts with unit prices for small jobs like these, so the town may be able to piggyback off some of those contracts to do the actual work instead of having to bid it out. That would save time. So,
are they going to, if we have a rain event, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna film all the streets? They have to bring a crew in and measure?
oh,
I mean, she's got this place memorized, I mean, I know.
well,
that,
and she's ridden with me out
Yeah.
there after
Oh,
the
yeah.
rain event, but, I mean, she has to have her people that do the work come out and,
And they're gonna have to like measure like the pooling and
yeah,
how far it is from an intersection and all that before it dries out. So
that's,
it's gonna take a few people and a few hours.
that's why they've got 21 days
Yeah.
scheduled to do that,
Okay.
so.
Is that?
I guess we should pray for rain, right?
It's like, yeah, it's totally dependent on site. I mean, they know where
I
there's
know.
issues, depending on site conditions like
It
that
is.
day, yeah.
It is,
Okay.
Pray for rain during the day, I assume.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
during working hours, okay.
So the scope of that work, is that going to include the discussion we had at the last meeting regarding narrow roads and so forth?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay, absolutely.
absolutely.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to, excuse me,
That-
the auditor selection.
Yeah, auditor selection, the committee, the auditor selection committee met on Monday the 3rd and approved the RFP for annual audit services. It's currently being publicly advertised. The deadline to receive those proposals is March 20th. And then the selection committee will meet to make a recommendation on an accounting firm to the town commission sometime the week of March 30th. So, there's really not a major rush to approve the auditor, because the next auditor will be for the fiscal year 19-20 year, but we're in that process, want to get it done before we have to, get rushed about that, so. I'd also like to, as I mentioned, adding the St. Andrews landscaping. We did, if you remember, it's been many months ago, the staff came to you with a landscaping plan for that area around the 3 concrete poles. And as you can see in the letter from Mr. Grassi, we're kind of compromising on that. They'd like to amend it slightly, and you can see the colored rendering of that. That basically, it's calusha that goes all the way around and basically screens the tennis courts, which the codes require them to be screened. They were screened, but they did a pretty major trimming of those bushes. So this will actually give better screening from the edge from A1A than the previous plan that we had. As you can see, it still includes 5 Christmas tree palms in the plan, and so the cost of these two is just the difference is negligible. So the staff is fine with it. We just wanted to bring it to you since we had brought the original to you several months ago.
It's probably gonna be easier for maintenance, provides better shielding, simpler.
It
Simpler
is.
is probably better.
That's right. So I just need to kind of, get a,
Do you need a commission approval to
yes.
proceed? All right, is there a motion to approve the change in the landscaping plans?
Motion to approve the new landscape plan for the area in the town next to A1A for the St. Andrews Club tennis courts.
Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Warden?
Yes. Okay, we have an ARPB meeting on February, I'm sorry.
Question, for the location of the ponds, my assumption would be that they wouldn't be right behind the columns, would they be right in front of those poles? Because it's hard to say exactly.
We can't put them in front of the poles, the DOT has already said that.
Right, so they have,
So
so
they
they're not
have to
gonna be
be
direct,
behind them.
But not
It doesn't have to
directly.
be directly behind the pole. They
so we
be-
can handle that layout with your people? So
Yes,
Perfect.
they just can't be in front of the poles.
As far as also this water project, the water line, the main water line, how does that affect that area? I know you said it was going across the street,
It'll just be in the right of way.
in the right way, and will it cross over A1A on our other side of our street? Because
No.
we're considering, it's not going in front of our east property?
No,
Okay,
no, it goes up to Little Club Road and then out towards the, intercoastal.
okay, so nothing comes across A1A?
No.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
And now I just wanted to bring you up to speed on the town monument sign. It's scheduled to start on Wednesday. It's made out of coquina, stone, so it's taken a while. They have to extract it, they have to,
Can't get it.
it's the problem. So it's taken a while, but, right now it's scheduled to begin next week.
Terrific. So I was just looking at it yesterday, wondering when it was gonna be done, so very good. ARPB meeting February 27th at 8:30 a.m. Finance report, Mr. Dunn?
Unless, any of you saw anything unusual, that you have any questions about the financial report, it represents 1/3 of our budget, right?
I have one question.
Okay.
Looks like we've collected some sizable money now in that penny sales tax fund.
Yes.
It's over 200,000. So those pennies have added up. What kind of, what are there any restrictions in how we can use those funds?
Yes, it has to be used for infrastructure projects. So right now, in this current year, we have allocated a chunk of it to go towards our A1A water main project, because it has to be for infrastructure.
Thank you.
And the road work that may be done
Right.
after the Baxter Woodman analysis. Other questions?
Ms. White?
No.
Amazing.
Okay, now we can breathe.
That included water usage, right?
Yes.
Oh, we're past both. Okay.
Yes.
Chief Al?
Request be submitted, I'll just give you a couple of notes on it here. The lawn equipment, I believe we mentioned that actually at the last meeting. That's the same incident where someone drove by and actually opened the door of the trailer with lawn equipment and took out 2 pieces of equipment and drove off. That's a fairly common occurrence with the lawn people battling that all the time. The identity theft fraud of the Verizon account, that is a victim who basically her name and information was used to open a Verizon account, fictitious account. Then we also had a couple of real estate signs taken from one of the condos. I haven't figured that out yet, who's taking real estate signs. They're not being taken by the city at all. And last, we had the tag stolen from a motor vehicle. Chuckles over it. Which, I don't know if we need to go into detail of that.
I mean, however, when you have a problem, I will say, so you call, then you go right to the top. This is the chief of police, what can I do for you? So it's, that's why, one of the reasons why we live here, although we don't like these incidents, so thank you, chief.
Quite well. And with, another item that's not on here, it just occurred yesterday morning, we did have a boat landing on the beach here, which had, and totally ended up rounding up 7 Haitians, male and female combination. It's all turned over to Water Patrol and ICE, and the federal agents all come in and handle all that and remove the boat. The boat's gone, so we didn't leave anything behind.
And they've been turned over to?
Yeah, all the subjects are turned over to them. They actually are turned over to them, they're interviewed, and then they're sent down to the Chrome Detention Center in Miami, where they're held until they go before a judge to determine whether they're going to be, if they
been,
They're all, well, we don't know for sure how many actually came on shore. We were able to locate 7. And
wow, and who did that? Did you all do that?
we did it.
Well, congratulations.
It becomes an effort of us, the sheriff's office, the border patrol, customs agents, you get a multi-agency get involved. And the helicopter was up flying over looking.
The speed with which you marshaled the resources to apprehend those individuals was impressive.
This went on from 6:30 in the morning till about 11 o'clock in the morning, and actually when they found the last one. There was one still hiding in the bushes at the time. 2 canines were out, had one grown up lion. It turns into, a lot of manpower being, absorbed in that time for what's going on. And what I did find interesting we had a Creole interpreter from Delray PD who came over and interpreted for us. And a couple of the detainees actually mentioned they're paying between $2,000 to $5,000 a head to get the ride over here on the boat.
Wow.
That's how desperate these people are to come. That's all I have for my report.
Thank you, Chief. All right, let's move on to items for commission action. Mr. Dunham, the construction management service proposal.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Our contract with Baxter Woodman actually provides that they, if we believe it's necessary to engage their services for construction management services, so it's a part of our existing contract now. So this being almost a $2 million project, and the sensitivity of it, they're burying water mains, and the elevations of those mains have to be exact, and with the material that's underground. So the staff believes it's necessary that we should have these type of services for a project this size. I do have Mr. Aaron Cutler here, who is the Vice President with Baxter and Woodman, to discuss the contract. I will say that Mr. Cutler, Mayor, myself, and Trey had a chance to meet before the meeting, and we were talking about some of the costs for some of the services, and he gave us a little better explanation that it's not to exceed cost in there, and so the numbers that you see might not necessarily be the exact numbers at the end of it. So I'll let Mr. Cutler kind of describe the need for this and why we're doing this, and then the mayor may want to also discuss it, but we'll give you a chance to make a presentation to it.
Right. Thank you. Mr.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Aaron Cutler. I am with Baxter and Woodman. I'm the Vice President and our Construction Department Manager. I helped prepare the scope. I am familiar with the project, and I actually managed the project. They did similar to this in Highland Beach, as well as along Linton and Delray Beach. So I'm quite familiar, with this sort of project. What we try to do is we try to make sure we have our inspector on site during the critical work activities, like the directional drill. There's material underground that can change the proposed alignment of that drill pipe. And we definitely want to make sure that we're verifying that the contractor does it per our design, because there's separation issues with other utilities, as well as ground conditions with rock. Things of that nature can have effect on the pipe, and it can put strain on the joints. So we want to make sure we're out here during those activities. And then even the open cut, we're going to certify this to the health department for a potable water main that it's public water usage. So there's separation requirements with sewer pipes, storm pipes, things of that nature that we want to verify. But what we do is we put together a projection based on the contract time frame of when those critical activities will happen. So we've applied a cost to that not to exceed, so that only the hours that our inspectors are out here verifying the town would be charged for. But talking a little bit more with the mayor and yourself, we were able to look a little bit closer, and I think there's some cost savings that we can kind of hone in a little bit more. There'll be some planning for the contractor when they do drilling, and we can use our experience on past projects and try to, without having the contractor schedule, it's a little bit difficult, but we can do a better projection of that, and I think we can offer some more cost savings to the town, as well as what we discussed with some of the other sub-consultants.
Okay, very good. And you have emphasized a cost not to
Correct.
to exceed, but the numbers are still a little high, so if you would
Sure.
revise them, and we'll remove the arborist services portion of it.
Correct.
We'll do that as needed, we already have a contract with that company. Very good. Any questions?
And I think what we'll do is, we'll work over the next month, addressing that, and we'll have this back on.
Because it's coming back next meeting.
It
right?
is.
Okay, revised version. Great.
And it should only take us next week to get recheck this and get this back over to you guys. It won't take us long.
We just have one meeting a month, so.
Okay, I understand.
But
We're not gonna have any type of, we don't even have the bid chosen yet, so we're not gonna have a construction schedule for, what, another month or 2 months?
That, they won't come to the commission until April, so that would be.
Schedule will be like, what, June, May? We have it in May, right? As soon as the contractor's gotta figure it out as soon as it's chosen.
That's the,
notice to proceed is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, this is dovetailing on the contractor's schedule of what they're doing.
Well,
Or
our
the
plan is to
activities.
have the notice to proceed probably in May.
Okay, so still.
So we're still,
90 days, I mean, I got you.
yeah, so we're still on schedule even with this, rethinking the contract. But it is important to note that it is not to exceed.
Correct.
Right.
From what I understood from reading the report, we'll have a 40-hour work week that will be a resident project representative, that he will be there full-time, and he has a number of hours. Then there's also a construction manager, and he'll do field inspections about 12 hours a month. Okay. What are the difference in qualifications between those two job descriptions?
So the inspector is on-site that specializes in verifying, some of the technical stuff that the contractor's doing and making sure that's done, per the engineer's design. The construction manager is more of an administrative role, that he oversees, any shop drawing submittals that come in. He'll run the progress meetings, any RFIs, requests for clarifications. But we also want to make sure that they're aware of what's going on site. So we try to put a little bit of hours to his, so that he's aware when he's answering RFIs, or maybe there's a meeting where there's a change the contractor wants to go over. So we try to allot a little bit of time just so he can come out to the site too and see some specific site conditions as well.
And the contract does, or the proposal does say 40 hours a week, but that doesn't mean that person's gonna be out there.
Correct, and that was one of the things we talked about before this meeting. Anytime the contractor's planning or waiting on materials, there's no reason for somebody to be out here. So what we're gonna hone in on and get a little bit closer is making sure just during the critical work activities that our inspector will be on site. So that's what I'm gonna go back and talk with our staff some more and come back and present that to the town.
And so, and you gotta remember, those pay requests, once they put it together and send it to us, we review those, and so
And we have backup hours with each activity, whether it's the construction manager or the inspector, in our invoicing process. So you'll even get to see the backup and be able to verify.
So we'll know what hours, I mean, how many hours they were out there and the reason they were out there to verify that. I mean, in our meeting yesterday, just with the 13 contractors that were sitting out here, I mean, they were asking questions of Jockey, technical questions
Sure.
already. And so, is that more the administrator, the task one, or would that be the on-site guy?
I typically, as a construction manager, if I'm managing this project, I'm like the gatekeeper to information that comes in, questions that get asked. Some of it, we have to meet with our engineer, our design team. Some of it is a typical that, you know, we're aware of permit conditions with DOT, things of that nature. So they'll all come to me, we'll establish the lines of communication, and then I distribute from there what needs a design response or what, you know, we can handle. And all of that, you know, we're trying to be cost effective for our services as well.
And just to compare, when we did our drainage structure over on Polo, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I mean, it's a much smaller project, but, you know, it went through the seawall. We did have a Baxter Woodman inspector out there. He wasn't there 8 hours a day, every day of the week, but I was out there many times when he was instructing the contractor, on now you need to add more rock here, and that sort of thing, and the job is done very well. I mean, it's operating very well.
I think the task that you're being charged with is critical, obviously water. And to use an old saying, measure twice, cut once. You know, to have this kind of oversight is critical, because I assume at the end of the project, I don't know whether it's a legal term, but are you gonna warrant that it's done properly, it's gonna function the way it's supposed to, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct, and we will certify that to the health departments, because it's an active public water system, but also to the Department of Transportation, because a lot of this work is in their right of way, and we'll be certifying that to you guys as well. And what we try to do is you know, a contractor, sometimes they're geared towards production. So they want to get the most cost-effective way to do things as fast as possible. So we're there to ensure that, you know, that they can still achieve those goals, but it's done with our engineering standards and principles, you know, that the project, so that this town will last, you know, the water main facilities will last, you know, like they're intended to.
You've probably never had a project of this scope where you haven't had something in the field
Correct.
that just surprised everybody. I mean,
Correct.
these guys have had, what do you call the equipment that you go out to try to determine the type of
Ground
radar?
penetrating radar, correct.
So,
Yeah. They'll pick up, before we bore the contractor bores anything underground, we require that they go out, even though we have a design, they have to get updated utility locate tickets. And all those utilities are marked again, and then they show us that on a plan and show us their drill path. And once that's approved, we have to make sure all the separations are right. We have a guy that's on site and checks every 20 foot. They have a radar that tracks that pilot hole drill, and he verifies that it's being done per our profile. Now, on projects where you don't have that type of oversight, you know, you'll have a contractor that may hit rock or hit something underground, and will just continue to push instead of making a correction and pulling back out, starting over. And you could have a pipe that does this type of thing, and you don't want that deflection or strain on your joints because of this.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Keller.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you next month. Let's move on to our ordinances. We have second readings. Ms. Taylor, we're looking at ordinance number 20/1.
This is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, eliminating references to items categorized as discouraged and declaring them prohibited by amending the Town Code of Ordinances at Chapter 70, Article 5, Division 3, General Landscape Standards, Section 70-148 Principles, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. This passed first reading the 10th day of January 2020 and is presented for second reading and adoption this 14th day of February 2020.
Ordinance 20/1 has been presented upon second reading. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to approve ordinance 20-1.
Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Let's move on to ordinance number 20/2.
This is an ordinance of the Town Commission, the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the Town Code of Ordinances at Chapter 66, Article 7, Section 66-321, Creation, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an effective date, passed first reading on the 10th day of January 2020, and is presented for final reading and adoption on this 14th day of February 2020.
Thank you. Ordinance number 20/2 has been presented for second reading and adoption. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 20/2 as presented.
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Anything else?
Mayor, would you accept the comment from the floor?
Absolutely. Mr. Graziano?
Thank you. This is the first time I've spoken to you as a resident of St. Andrews instead of as a resident of the town. I think we all know that St. Andrews didn't fare very well from the aesthetics point of view with the undergrounding project. It's also true that as a legal matter, I don't think you were required to do anything to address that. You did, and Mr. Dunham has worked very cooperatively with our manager to deal with the situation, and I'd like to publicly thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We value St. Andrews Club, and really it's almost like a party also. It's so close, right across, and actually sharing some of our properties. So, I think we work very well together. Anyone else?
Greg, is there any news on the streetlights in West Essex?
The globes are in. We're waiting on the poles, and it's probably still gonna be another month or month and a half for the poles. But the globes, the fixtures are in.
Great.
We're trying to decide where to store those things when they come in, and we've actually thought about it. I'll just tell you, well, since you brought it up, the area over there on the north side of the road in the guardhouse, behind all the vegetation, up next to the fence. And so you might have some poles sitting out there. The problem is that that's not our property, but we'll figure that one out.
Who is it?
Well, it's the LLC. It's either the golf club or the LLC, that owns $20. Can you ask them for it? No, I'm just saying that, well, that's probably where we'll put them, so they see a bunch of poles out there, that's what it is.
Okay. Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay, fighting the battle
They come up with your mother. One was hiding. You do a good job. You guys have been busy here.